Divorce is often viewed as a painful and devastating experience, but what if it could be an opportunity for growth and self-discovery? That's what we talk about in episode 16 of Breaking Through, the Alina Abovian podcast. I am so honored today to have Keni Silva. She's a model, an entrepreneur, philanthropist, author, and a certified divorce coach. In her new book, Divorce is an Opportunity, Keni explores the transformative power of divorce and how it can often, surprisingly, lead to a better future. And as Keni explains, it's all about having the right mindset and the right tools. In this episode, we talk about everything from knowing when to leave, how to be prepared, how to tell your children, how to go through the grieving process, find yourself, and open the door to your future self. Your book kept me up, I want to say 3 or 4 hours. But as I was saying to you earlier, it was like spending 3 or 4 hours with a really good girlfriend who's going to sit you down and tell you exactly like it is when you go through a divorce. And that's what I loved about it. It was so honest and so real. And it gave real tangible advice, not just, oh, go out and prosper. Yeah, that's lovely. But you have to go through the hard steps, right?
Yes, no. And that's why I wanted the book to be. I wanted to be short and quick, but at the same time, you read it and there's honesty, like, listen, it's going to get dark and scary very fast.
It does.
And you have to be prepared for it. And you have to know it's okay, it will pass too. And if you switch your mindset to concentrating on the future, not in your present current state, then everything is kind of start falling, to where it needs to be. And you start realizing there's so much more to the divorce than just grieving and sadness. There's so much growth, but you have to do the work.
Of course.
You have to start preparing, like I say, divorce. You can look at it as a college time. You can use that time to start if you want to get a new job or you want to switch the job or you even want to go back to work because you didn't go. That's the time for you to prepare.
Right. No, it is. It's such a beautiful time and catalyst for change. And I think oftentimes that message gets lost in the negative connotation that gets associated with divorce. And yes, it is negative, and some people have really tragic, horrible stories, not discrediting that. But at the same time, it is a time of profound change, of self-discovery and opportunity, just like the title says, divorce is an opportunity. I can't wait to dive into it. But first, can you just tell us a little bit about you? You're from Russia.
Yes, I grew up in Moscow. I was born and raised there. And I started modeling early on because I wanted that independence and I loved traveling. And my mom raised me with the idea that, one day I will move to another country. I spoke different languages. She wanted me to go to France to study. At 18, I lived in Milan. And then at 19, I came to the United States. And it just, I loved it. I love traveling the world. I feel like, especially now after divorce, put me in any country. I know how to survive. I know how to start over. It doesn't scare me starting over. And that's what I always also realized. When I was 19 and I came to United States, I had no fear because I always thought, I can always start all over. When you're older, you start having all those fears and like what people are going to say, what people are going to think of, all this judgment, all this like, well, now I'm at this age, I have all these responsibilities. And what if it's not going to be up to my expectation? Then I realized, you know what? It doesn't matter if I'm 19, I was 38 when I filed or I got divorced. I don't remember even now because the life just moves on. But that's the thing. The fears, that's what stop us from growth, from going forward. And when you learn how to put it back and say, okay, it's just the age, it's just the number. It doesn't matter if you're 19, you can start all over at any age, at 50, at 60, if you're not happy. It doesn't have to be divorce. A lot of women are just not happy, but they don't want to get divorced. They're just not happy and they don't know how to start over. Their kids growing older, they don't know what to do with themselves. Maybe the job they're on, they don't like. And just having that step forward and acknowledgement, I'm not happy, I want to change my life. That's the beginning of it.
That's the first step. And you said fear. And I think oftentimes fear just keeps us stuck in so many phases in our lives. But for someone like you, and I can relate to you in that way because we grew up, I think, with a lot of Russian influence. We were talking earlier that we both have, I'm half Russian, you're Russian. And that sense of independence that Russian women have, I grew up seeing that in my grandmother, in my mom, and that was always embedded in me. So as a kid, I was very fearless. my mom would put me on a plane at the age of 10 to go visit my dad. So I lived in Moscow for 3 months every summer for so many years. And I loved it. As a little kid, I felt like a grown-up, look at me, I'm traveling. And so I had this sense of bravery and ballsiness my whole life. And then, fast forward to being 21, 22, when I met my ex-husband, all that bravery went away because for some reason I felt the safest thing to do was to give my power away.
Yes.
Why do we do that to ourselves?
Well, the thing is, when you're in a relationship, you have that shoulder to lean on. Mm-hmm. Because when you're by yourself and you're growing up, the parents are always like, okay, one day you're going to be out of college, you're on your own, you have to be on your own. Once you're with a partner, it's a good thing to have that partner and know you have, a wall to lean in. But at the same time, I think women, especially once they start having children, it's like all that independence and confidence is gone. Mm-hmm. They feel that now they depend on somebody. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if you work or not. It's just that feeling of, well, I do need a partner. Because it's also the society, they tell us. If you have a family, you do need a partner to have a child. You do need a partner to have a family. It's all that brainwashing that they do to make you depend on, I think it's the whole American society, to be honest with you. Really? They make you dependent, like, okay, all these things. In Russia, unfortunately, with the climates and, the governments, it's always something happening. So the Russian people are always prepared to start all over, to lose everything and start all over from scratch. And,
it's the survivor mindset.
It's survivor mindset. You're always into that, like the survivor skills. In America, everything is so beautiful and, like you can have the life you want and they make you relaxed. Mm-hmm. And when something happens, people don't know what to do because they're like, well, they didn't prepare us for it.
It's like we become complacent to our own lives. How old were you when you met your ex-husband?
I was 23.
So very young.
And I always wanted to have a family young. I always wanted to have kids young. And I'm happy I did because I think with age, I don't have as much patience. So I'm happy that my kids now, my son just turned 13. I have another teenager. I love that age. Now they're grown up where I can talk to them on a different topics. And, so I love that. I wouldn't change anything. Everything I had, I loved. It just, the process of marriage and family, I lost myself somehow with that big idea of, women have to, like family is everything and kids and devoting yourself. Even I did work and that's where I got my broker real estate license because that's what we did. I wanted always to be a full-time mom because my mom always worked. So I felt like I didn't get that as a child, my mom being around. So I always said, like, no matter what I'm going to do, I want my kids to be my priority. And I did that. And I shifted, from doing what I did before, something that we did as a family. Everything was around the family thing. And that's where I feel like I lost the sense of who I was.
You talk about that in the book too, and I think a lot of women can relate. I certainly feel that way because I met my ex-husband when I was 21 and everything with good intentions, right? Build a home, build a career, build a life, build all these things and try to do it perfectly. And just by looking at you, I can tell you do everything perfectly. But you get to a point where from the outside it looks perfect, but on the inside, what was going on with you? And how did that sort of unraveling happen?
Well, when I started realizing when I had kids little, everything is kind of pre-planned. Everything is about kids' vacations. Okay, kids has a break, we're going to go on vacation. And the planning continued for like 3 years in advance. And that's where I realized, I always live in the future. I don't live in the current moment. I'm always planning, and I'm reliving it because on daily basis, it's just like a schedule, like you get up, you do this, everything is so robotic. And now I read this amazing book, The Power of Now. And now that's why I know the difference. I don't plan anything. I mean, of course I plan work things, but if somebody calls me and say, hey, let's go here and there, I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I bring the unknown as a gift. Okay, I don't know what will happen. I want the life to surprise me. A lot of people ask me, like, what about this? I'm like, I don't know. I want the life to surprise me.
I love that.
And
I love that, truly, because I think when you do that, when you live in the present moment, you're really in the flow of what the universe can do to surprise you. But when you're planning everything, you're sort of putting yourself in a box of this is the only outcome possible.
Yes.
But it's not.
And that's how I realized, it's like my life became this, Stepford Wives. Everything is so planned, so precise. Everybody goes to lunch, everybody goes to dinner, you have a family vacation, you do this. There's nothing outside the box. Like no. And that's why I remember being in my 1920s because life was one big surprise. It's like you never know what you're going to get. It's like a box of chocolate. Right. And that's what I love now too. I mean, obviously there's certain things that you can predict, but what also, and the whole thing about divorce is the fear of unknown.
Yes.
And because that's what I think the biggest challenge in the divorce. It's not divorce itself. It's what's going to happen to you after the divorce.
Right. The unknown, which can be incredible.
How your life is going to change. Right. What's going to happen to the kids. Letting go of the kids, not seeing them 50% of the time in my case.
It's the hardest thing.
It's the hardest thing. And they were little. And that's why, it took me a while to get to the divorce stage. I'm like, well, maybe if I just wait a little bit, they're still too young. Now with me knowing, I'm like, it doesn't matter how old they are. Kids adjust so fast. The younger they are, actually, they adjust much better because when they're older and teenagers, they have already on a different level of different problems. So it's harder for them.
Right.
But that's why the book, I wanted to show every single step. And to me, when you know something and you kind of know what to do, then it becomes less scary.
Right. No, it's all about having the right tools. You said, everything felt like a Stepford wife situation. For a lot of people, and I think we were probably in that phase too, rewind maybe 10 years. It's like, that's all you really want, right? The beautiful house, the beautiful life. Why is that not enough?
For me, because every woman is different, it was family. I realized everything I wanted so bad, it was not a personal fulfillment.
Yes.
I was born for bigger things. I love, like when women come to me or they DM me, oh my God, like you changed my life. You're such a big inspiration. That's where I realized my fulfillment. When I can help with something I know. Right. And maybe it is a maternal instinct because I have 2 children, but I cannot have any more. I just, I have one of each. This is perfect. But I want to do bigger things. I want to change how people view the whole divorce. There's so much in life that I realized, and it's not materialistic things. And that's where it was scary. I was like, listen, I have the most beautiful life. I live in Newport Beach. I have the house I wanted, dream home. I had another home. I had everything I wanted because it was on my wish list. Like I'm very good at, making wish lists and getting them all, checked mark. But I'm like, wow, but it's like, I'm not happy. And not just I'm not happy. There's a part of me that was lost, that growth. And that's why now I feel like, even my daughter said, Mom, I took her with me to Aspen. I'm on a board of a charity. I do a lot of philanthropic work. She's like, seeing you in your element makes me so happy. You really living a full life right now. And that was the biggest compliment and approval of what I did was right. Because when your kids see you being happy and what you do matters, they're proud of you too. They know, yes, it was, they were hurting too. They were hurting too during divorce. And because it was my choice to get divorced, I was thinking sometimes having a choice is actually harder because
you're the one pulling the trigger.
You have to face with, wow, it's my happiness against 3 other people. And then you realize, you know what? A happy mother will create a happy environment for her children. It doesn't matter, just because 2 people live together, it doesn't mean it's a happy family.
Right. And I honestly think simply saying I'm not happy is enough. People look for these grand reasons to get a divorce, infidelity, abuse, all those things exist. Again, I'm not discrediting it, but I know so many women who are simply unhappy, that feel lost, like they lost their identity. They're not living to their purpose. I think you have to take a very hard look at yourself and understand who you are and what lights you up. I'm someone who has to be in love with life. I have to be in love with my spouse. I have to, maybe it's just the way that I was raised, it's just who I am. I'm a creator. I have to have those things in place. Otherwise, I will slowly die on the inside. And that's what was happening to me. I was slowly dying on the inside because everything on the outside, I did the best I could to make it perfect. On the inside, it's like, where's that girl?
Yeah.
Where's that girl who had the sense of adventure, of wonder, all these things? And it's not wrong to want these things. I just think it's society that conditions us. This is your title, wife and mother, sit in your spot and enjoy your life. But it's not enough.
No, it's not. And that's where, when I was in my 20s, I used to dream so big. And I realized I stopped. There's like all the dreaming it was not creative dreaming. It was just, superficial dreaming, where to go on vacation or where the kids are going to go to college. But it was nothing about me.
Right.
And that's where, I realized there's something. Listen, it took me 4 years to come to that decision.
How did you finally come to it? What was that breaking moment?
I think it was after pandemic. Where we were all, and it wasn't even about being stuck in the same home. It was just about waking up and saying, wow, well, if this would be the end of the world, and this is how I want to remember myself, I don't want that. I want to have a full life. At least if they put us again at our homes and, at least I would be like, oh my God, I had so many memories. Like I lived life, I really lived life.
What's the first thing you did when you got a divorce for yourself?
Well, I was living with my ex-husband during divorce. So, and because of that also, to me, being free and moving out was the biggest thing I ever wanted. I wanted to be living on my own. So, and it's also, I feel like one of the biggest things that makes divorce so sad is when people continue fighting for so long.
Yes.
And it's not just they fight for things at the end of the day they don't even want. They don't realize
it's the ego.
It's the ego. And that's where in the book I say, you can make more money, you can buy more time. So once I moved out, and it takes around 6 months to actually get to, to the point you start enjoying your life, because the first 6 months you're just figuring it out. The schedule.
Right. Oh, it's the darkest, hardest time. It's not
the whole life. But I remember the first thing, and I wanted to find out, okay, what do I actually like? Because everybody's like, well, but what do you want it? I said, I don't know. In 15 years of being, in a relationship, in a marriage, being a mother, I didn't even know what I wanted.
Because we don't ask ourselves.
We never ask. I knew everything what my husband loves, my kids, but not me. So I start trying everything from singing, walking, dancing, whatever it is, painting. Like I just wanted, and journaling was always my thing. I actually started writing the book during my divorce. I just love writing. And, the book was always on my mind because I started during divorce. And I'm like, I really want to do this book. And I started figuring things out, how and where to start and asking things. So I guess it was a lot of different things just to figuring it out who I was at the age of now, 38, going through all my experiences, all my degrees. Like, what do you want to do? What's, it's like, it wasn't anything like crazy. Oh my God, I'm going to go on a trip. Like, no, it just finding who I was.
Right.
It was a journey. It's a whole journey on its own.
It's a beautiful thing. I mean, honestly, just to even sit there and ask yourself that question, what do I want? It's a scary question to ask yourself, but also so liberating because we don't do it. And I think taking this back to the Russian upbringing, we are taught to be people pleasers.
Yes.
Right? And so I existed also to please my husband, to create the perfect family dynamic for my children, doing all these things, parents-in-law, all of it. And all those things are very honorable, and I would never take it back. I'm so glad I have that in me. But you have to also honor yourself. And I love how you explain it in the book. The whole thing is highlighted, I'm telling you.
I love it.
You have some really beautiful quotes here, and you write very to the point, which I love. You say, your divorce won't be your entire story of your life. You'll get to write a happy ending. And another one here that says, when we are faced with our worst fears, sometimes we become our best selves. And I think that's so, so true. But you have to go through the adversity first. So for women listening, if they are thinking about divorce, what can they do? Your top 3 pieces of advice to get ready for divorce.
Well, besides the paperwork, and the things you actually do have to, I have to remind you that attorneys, they're your co-pilots. You're going to be the pilots.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to, if you don't know anything about your financials or anything, they're not going to go look for it.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, you do have to be prepared. You have to know, about like the homes you have, the financial things. The second, and we're talking about the preparation. The second, you have to learn how much money you actually spend.
Right.
Because for fighting for something, you have to know, like, okay, well, maybe you already have that proposal and you want to continue fighting for more.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the basics to me. And then just don't take anything personally. You have to remember that divorce is like a war. People say things they don't mean because they're in the heat of the moment. And they also come from hurt. Mm-hmm. Like when you're fighting with your husband, he's also hurting. You're not the only person. So you have to remember that no matter what he said, he let it go.
Right.
And look at it as a business deal. Listen, you had a business and now you're separating with your business partner. It's a business transaction at the end of the day. And that's about it. And you can still, I have the best relationship with my ex-husband now.
How did you get to that place where now you have a good relationship? Because it was your decision to leave. You write about in the book, 70% of divorce is initiated by women, which is mind-boggling. How did your husband take it? And then how did you get to the place where you are now?
Well, first, he didn't believe me. That...
Same. I think they think you're never going to leave because of the age gap.
Yes. And I think also during the divorce, he thought we're still figuring it out, our marriage. And I'm like, no, I'm done. And it took us 6 months after divorce too. Just because, listen, time heals everything. That's true. Everybody has to heal. Everybody has to have space. And then realize, and it was, it was to the point where every time there was something I would say, listen, I still love you. I'm not in love with you. I'll be there for you. Whatever you need. I give you the vows. I'll honor them. Mm-hmm. It's just we are not, I can't. I lost myself. I want to find myself. It has nothing to do with you at this point. It's just me. I'll be there, whatever. And I think reassuring them that they still have that partner. Maybe they're not living in the same home now. There's still a family. Mm-hmm. And, in the beginning, everything is very tight. And everybody is like, okay, well, the schedule, we have to obey. But now we're like, okay, do you want, oh, I'm going to be out of town. Take it. It takes time. Everything takes time. And you have to think about it. But you also have to be willing. You have to be willing, for example, in the beginning when the kids would go to his house and I'm control freak. What time the kids go to school, what time they wake up, what time they go to sleep, what the homework, the food. And I called him, I remember a couple of times. What did you do? He's like, they're with me and I'm in charge. And I was like, okay, you're right.
You got schooled.
And I was like, and he's like, or I think Josh was sick or something. I'm like, well, give this, listen, I can take care of it. Mm-hmm. And to me, it was like, okay, well, I have to work on myself to learn to let go.
Yes.
Because otherwise I will, I will mentally kill myself overthinking.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then I thought, okay, because he never did this when we were together, because it was always my job or something I did because he worked full time. But I'm like, you know what? He's an adult. He's a doctor. I'm pretty sure the kids are going to be fine. And the worst case, they will call 911. And it was a lot of work for me to let go because it was also, I didn't have kids, but everything I was thinking about is about them.
Of course. You don't stop being a mother just because your kids go away.
Exactly.
People think, oh, you're divorced, you're only a parent 50% of the time. No, the worrying doesn't end. In fact, it's worse because they're not in front of your eyes. Yes. So you can't, make them feel better if they feel sad about something, but you do. You have to let go and give your spouse, your ex-spouse, the dignity of figuring it out. And oftentimes men do step up to the occasion. My ex is an incredible dad and he does a great job with our kids and they're 2 boys. They have such a good time together. And, you have have to just let go and hope that they figure it out. And
they actually say that men become better dads after divorce.
They do.
Because a lot of they're forced during divorce, their turn is like, hey, you have to figure out, you have to know all the doctors, all the teachers, everything. So they do have to step up. And then, of course, when they don't have them, they have their best life. And when they have the kids, they miss them. They want to be with them. And everything takes time. It takes time for you to adjust. It takes time for dad to adjust. It takes time for the kids to adjust. And I think the biggest thing for my children was, because it was so attached to me, was the fear of not, and that's what kids go through, their fear that they will lose one of the parents.
Right.
And I told them, I said, I promise you one thing, even I'm physically not there, 50% or whatever percentage it is, I'm always there with you. If you need me, you can always call me. If you forgot something, I will be there. I will always be there. And the first 6 months especially, I was there. If my son calls me, like, Mom, can you just bring me this breakfast? Or I forgot this. I was always there. And after time, they realized, like, okay, we didn't lose anybody. Yes, we do go from home to home. And I tell them, like, you still have a family unit. You have a loving mom and a loving dad. Yes, you have to go, you have to spend time with dad and mom, but it is a family unit. And now they know it. They know that, mom is there, dad is there. And, sometimes my son, when he's at his dad's house, he doesn't even talk to me for 3 days. And I know, even it's sad, but I know
you're happy for them.
I'm happy because it means he doesn't need me. He's good. And I start thinking when I just got divorced, I'm like, kids go to boarding schools at the age of 8. They don't see their parents, full week. I mean, it's the same thing. What's the difference? The same thing. It's not physically be there with your child, but I also feel like, because my kids was sheltered to the points that, everything, because I wanted to create this bubble around them and bubble wrap them so nothing happens.
I think we all do. You want to protect your children.
Yes.
That's why we send them to private schools or do certain things to give them the best opportunity in life. But also, I think sometimes the best opportunity in life is to show your children this is reality.
This is reality.
And you can be resilient, you can be tough, and you can do it all with grace. I always say that because it doesn't have to be the ugliest version of what you're thinking. What you're trying to do can actually work out in the best scenario possible if you are conscious. Like you said, don't take anything personally. The first 6 months, it's heated. It's not fun. Your ex will say things to you that you're like, well, this is why I got a divorce. But you have to bite your tongue and say, this person is hurting. I'm hurting. I'm going to say things too. And just let yourself grieve. What did the grieving look like for you? And what did you do to come out of it? Like, what kind of grounding practices?
Well, for me, I did brain mapping. That's my
brain
secret.
Mapping. What is that?
And it's in the book. It's my secret weapon. They literally rewire your brain. It's not something, because I cannot meditate. I cannot get state of mind. Actually, now I can. I was walking a lot, and one of my girlfriends, she's an expert in meditation. She's like, "Well, you were doing, walking meditation,
it's moving meditation,
moving, yes." And because I cannot, I have to be always, doing something, and then. I met this amazing doctor, and it's a brain method. They first hook up all this. It's like MRI of your heart, and they do this and they analyze your brain, and they analyze what parts are working, what is not. And they're like, wow, like you're like at the depression level. I'm like, oh, really? Like I didn't even think that way, because, when you're constantly in that, survival mode, you're not letting...
You were in a depression level.
I was in a depression level, judging by my brain. It's like, if green is good, it was like dark red. She was like, what's happening to you? Are you sick? Like it's either like you have, something going on with you, or maybe you're, like you're physically not there. I'm like, no. But it was so precise. She was like, oh, 7, 8, you changed schools. I was like, yeah, I did. It's like, then you moved to the way she reads it, or they read it, it's your brain is so precise. It's like a roadmap. Then it shows that, okay, you had a big change, and this is where I moved to this country. And then there's something happened to you at 23 that's progressing. And 23 is exactly when I met my ex-husband. And basically, for example, my kids would always say like, oh, mom is always screaming. Because I see things like it's a mess, and I'm like, there.
OCD.
And then after, sessions and sessions, and she told me, she's like, you're going to start seeing things in 3D. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, wait. So, for example, I open the door and there's a mess. I have the feeling, but I don't react. I close the door and it doesn't bother me. And that's the best thing that happened to me. You start being so in control of your reactions. You have that feeling, but it doesn't make you explode.
It's the power of pause.
It's the power of pause, but I could never do it on my own or with all these techniques that are out there. I tried. It was just not there for me.
So how did you get there?
With it's a therapy. It's basically they hook once they determine what's wrong with you, they hook up, this whatever it is, and they start rewiring it basically. And the way they show you how your brain is in control of everything, like for example, she would give me games like, racing games that boys play with their hands, and you will play it with your mind.
Oh my gosh.
And first it's like, okay, you're good. And I'm such a competitive person. The first time I lost, never again. And because first it's like weird, like, you want to use your hand because that's how you feel. But all it is, you only hooked up to your brain.
Wow. So
you have no hands.
While you were divorced or right after?
I started during my divorce. I actually started a couple months before I filed. I think maybe that gave me a little bit more courage. And I've been doing it for a year during the whole divorce, and it changed my life. That's how I started thinking and looking at it. It's like, okay, just a business deal. There's no emotional involvement. Because you can't fight emotions. There's no price tag to it. There's nothing. It's like, okay, what are you fighting over air? That's stupid.
No, because we always give into our emotions. And I think when you're going through something that traumatic, it's very easy to default onto your fears, onto regret, thinking, what did I do? Because at least I was in a comfortable life. At least I didn't have to worry about these things that I'm now worrying about. And it's so easy to trick ourselves to thinking, I'm making a mistake. Did that ever happen to you?
I didn't have that problem. I didn't think I was making a mistake of getting divorced. There was just a lot of different decision-making things, in our divorce that, oh, maybe I should have done this. Oh, maybe I should have done this. But it was not, I never questioned that maybe I'm making a mistake that I was going through divorce because it took me so long to that. So I knew for sure, once I did that, I knew for sure I'm done.
So you talk about something else in the book too, that you have to be willing to make certain sacrifices.
Yes.
And I think that's really important. When I was going through my divorce, everything got resolved within just a few months. And it's because I didn't want to fight dirty. And I also didn't want to emasculate my husband because I love him so much to this day, love him more than anyone in the world. And I think the bond that you create with someone while you are building a family and having children, that can never be replicated. So I honor the love that we had and I cherish it. It's in my heart all the time. But I outgrew that life and I outgrew the marriage and I outgrew who I was. And I'm sure that's what happened to you as well. But when I was going through the hard time, I very quickly, like you said, I wanted to get it over with. So there were certain things that I said, I'm going to let go of this. I'm not going to fight it because it's not worth it to me. I don't want to spend these precious months where I'm supposed to be healing myself, taking care of my children, giving them all the time and attention that they need instead of being in a courtroom or with a mediator or with an attorney. It's like, okay, I'm going to give that up, but at least I have my peace of mind.
Yes. No, it's very important because, listen, you will never get everything on your list. And you have to be okay with that because you know what? That's life.
Right.
But you have to know what's your bare minimum. That's why it's important to know your financials, how much you spend, how much you need for a living if you were financially dependent on your husband. But you also have to understand that, those sacrifices are so little.
Right.
They're nothing compared to, I have girlfriends who've been going through divorce for 6-8 years. And the end result is always, the first offer is always the best one. You can go through 6-8 years. You have to also look at it. For the amount of money you're going to spend on your attorney.
Right. It's not even worth it.
It's not. You're going to end up with the same number. It's a math. And you also have to remember that a lot of times, and I say this, you marry one person, but you divorcing two. It's your husband and his attorney. A lot of times, it's their attorneys who will fight for certain things because it's their job.
Finances, I mean, let's not undermine it. It's pretty much everything.
Yes.
And I think a lot of women, if they had their finances in place, they would get divorced much faster. I know a lot of women who just can't leave because they don't know what they will do financially.
Yeah.
What's your advice to someone who feels stuck, who feels unhappy, and does not have the financial resources? What can they do to kind of at least move in the right direction?
Well, you have to get a job. And
right.
I say this in the
simple.
book. And listen, it might be scary, especially for somebody who didn't work for so long. But it's also...
Hey, working is not the worst thing. Actually, I think it's a beautiful thing.
I love it.
Right.
I love it. And I always did. And that's why I have so many different degrees and so many different things I did throughout my life because, it's like...
It's in you.
It's in me. I love the freedom that it comes with. I mean, obviously, now, I love what I do. I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, like every time I go to a podcast or interview, like, oh my God, if this is going to be the rest of my life, that's what I love. It's not the relationship. I'm not, for some women, they need to have a man to be happy. I'm not like that.
Me neither.
I want to inspire. I want to be talking. I want to have, a talk show. That's me.
No, and you are. And it's because it has a real purpose and you're in service of others. I genuinely believe that. When you find what you can do that's actually moving the needle for someone else is so empowering. And I say this to some of my friends now that may be going through something. I'm like, look, it's going to be hard, but you get what you pay for. You want your freedom, you want a life, you want a second chance, you want opportunities, you want to fall in love, you want all these things. Great. You're going to have to work for it. I work 3 jobs now, but I don't mind because I have no one else's voice in my head but my own. I have peace. I have the opportunity of wonder. I'm going to New York this weekend. I'm flying by myself. I'm going to meet my friends. It's a beautiful life you can create for yourself. And you don't have to apologize for that. No. You just have to be prepared. It's going to be difficult, but it's also going to be really, really great.
Yes. But that's the thing. A lot of man or woman, they don't want to do the work.
No.
And that's why they're like, you know what? I'd rather stay where I'm at because at least I know, that's my comfort zone. I don't want to start and I'm like, what if it's not going to be so good? Or, and that's why when people come to me and they ask for advice and then I see they don't follow through, I'm like, well, I guess they're not at that rock bottom where I can't live like this anymore. And only when a person hits that rock bottom, that's when okay, I'm ready for the change. Until then, they all talk about it, they complain and, you listen to them and it's like, they're not ready for the change. They don't. And it's not even, life is not easy. It's definitely rewarding. It's not fair, but you have to be prepared for it.
You choose your hard.
Yes.
Excuse me. Marriage is difficult.
Yeah, relationship is difficult too.
You choose your hard with whatever is aligned with who you are in this moment of your life. I think it's very acceptable, and a lot of people don't understand this, especially men. Your husband, I think, your ex-husband was 30 years older than you, right? Is 30 years older than you. My ex was 11 years older. Yeah. And so I think when they look at you as this younger woman, they almost cannot understand that she grew up.
Yes.
She's not the same person anymore. There's no scandal. I just grew up. I'm not that little girl anymore.
And that's why actually I told my ex-husband when we were going through, I'm like, I'm not that little girl anymore.
I just can't. I can't be.
This is it. I found back my voice. I grew my wings back and I'm ready to fly.
Yeah.
And that's what I want in a partnership now. That's the only way. I want somebody who will let me fly as high as I can. And will never cut my wings because then I'm just gonna cut it off. I'm like not interested. Done. It's like no more golden cages for me.
I think it's such a beautiful and inspiring thing as a woman when you can find your voice and you can find the confidence to say, I'm just done and I'm gonna do it on my own. I'm gonna figure it out. And it's almost like this glow that comes and you become a magnet for whatever else you want to attract because you chose yourself. You stood up for yourself. You are working for yourself. You're working for your children. And it's such a beautiful quality that I think just gets lost. And in society, we don't promote that enough. And we just attach so much judgment and so much complication to things. And one of the reasons why I really connected with your platform and your book and everything before I messaged you, you simplify it. And in the most beautiful way, it's like, I changed my mind. That's it. And it's okay for it to be that simple. We don't need to overcomplicate it. I think a lot of times
to give an explanation to anybody except ourselves.
Yes.
I decided I don't want it. That's it. That's enough.
It's your life.
It's enough. Not wanting something or wanting something. You don't have to look for approval from, and listen, it took me because my mom, lives with me, and I'm like, a lot of times I go for her approval, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm now 42. I don't need my mom's approval.
Right.
But to me, it's because, Russian people in general, or I grew up with so much respect for my parents and seeking approval for them. That's why to my children, I raise them. I'm like, listen, that's your life. Whatever you want to do.
Right.
If you don't want to do homework, that's on you. I went to school already. Like, hey, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to you. Like, if you don't improve your grades, you're going to go back and but it's your life. At the end of the day, I don't care. Right. I'm giving you the best platform. I'm always there to help, but only you can decide what you want to do with them. And they're like shocked. Like, wait, I'm in charge? I'm like, yeah, like you're 13, you're in charge.
I love that. It's the whole Mel Robbins theory. Let them.
Exactly.
Let them. I will give you all the tools. I'll give you all the love. I'll give you all the support. But if you're not going to do it at the end of the day, it's on you.
It's on you. And I tell them, I'm always going to have a room for you. But that's if that's the life you want for yourself, living with your mom until you grow old. And I believe in being extremely honest with children from early on. And I think that's the best way. When you start explaining them how life works, that there's nobody there to save them. There's yes, the parents are there to help, but it's them being in charge of their own life. And that's why I think divorce kind of shows them that, they're in charge of themselves. Like they're in charge of waking up and going to school and being ready. There's not always mom going to be there to knock on the door. Okay, get up. Time to eat. Time to do homework. They're on their own. The earlier they are to get used to that, the better they're going to be. Because I've seen my son last year, the school went on a field trip or a sleepaway with the school. And I see all these moms crying, all these kids crying. My son's like, Mom, don't get out of the car. I'll take my back where I'm going. Because he's so used to that separation. And I look at my girlfriends and I laugh. I'm like, you're going to cry when he's going to go to college. Like, what are you doing?
Toughen up.
Toughen up. He's going for a week. Come on. This is not that big of a deal. Yeah. And that's why I was like, oh my God, you know what? There's something good came out of it. And I always look positive. And I always tell my kids, like, listen, because I shift their mindset from sad to something positive. And I tell whatever, my daughter is going through, I'm like, but look, because this happened, something good happened. So I always put an accent on a good thing. So they remember, even if something is not, what they want is happening, they are going to be looking forward to the next thing, which is always good.
And you taught that to your children because your daughter, if we can talk about that,
yes,
she just went through a huge health scare.
And yeah, she had adrenal tumor 2 years ago. And this is where you realize life is so precious. There's nothing but being healthy. There's nothing but knowing your kids are healthy. It's like I can take whatever, but seeing your child and not be able to help, that's, I think, the scariest thing for...
it's the worst thing in the world.
Because, I didn't even know how to tell her.
How did you find out and what did she have?
She had different symptoms, and I took her to the doctor and I said, check her hormones. There's something off. And a mother always have that instinct. Intuition. There's something wrong with your child.
What was wrong? What were you noticing?
She didn't have a period. She was growing hair in the places she shouldn't have been. There were different things here and there. And they did check her hormones, and by blood work, they already said she has a tumor. And then we did CT scan, and they're like, oh, it's 10 centimeters. 10 centimeters, it's a small cantaloupe. And they're like, well, probably by this size, it's probably going to be stage 2 cancer. It's just because it's so huge. And she was 14. It was right after divorce. And
How did that not kill you?
Well, if it would have continued to grow, it would, because it was pushing her kidneys, it was pushing her main artery. That was the biggest fear besides, the rest, that it would have just pushed it and he would die. That she had 7-hour surgery and it was very complicated. She had 5 different teams of the doctors because they might have to remove a part of her kidney. Then, it was but that's where you realize there's nothing important in this life. And we only have now. The past is the past. We're not guaranteed of tomorrow. And what you do with your right now matters the most. And I think for my daughter, her going through that experience also made her realize, a lot of things. She puts all her pain into lyrics and she writes all her songs is about that. And she sees lives completely different. She's 16 and she cherishes, every moment. She's not into, like girls dress up in things. And she's like, Mom, like they didn't buy it. Like there's nothing to brag about. It's their parents. It's not their own achievement, which makes me so happy. She sees that there's so much more than materialistic and superficial things.
That's all fun, but that's not life.
It's not life.
Yeah.
And there's so much fulfillment from doing things. She has her own foundation. She started at school this year. So her first year in high school, in public high school, the first year after her surgery, she was homeschooled for, just getting back on health and doing her music. And she started a club there, Kids Against Tumors. This is the biggest club. And, so she's giving back so much and she enjoys it so much too. And she realizes that, there's so much in this world that you can create and help. And that's the real beauty. When you have something that you can give, it's much more rewarding than getting all the time. Of course, things.
Always. But you have to come to a place where you feel you can give. And I think that takes a lot of work behind the scenes and going through adversity, going through the dark times, hitting rock bottom, picking yourself up the floor, taking the time to heal yourself. And then you're like, okay, now I have something to share with the world and I want to be of service and I want to inspire someone, because you never know who you are, in fact, inspiring. Even if it's one person, you can change the trajectory of someone's life.
Yes, it's 100%. And, she has, and I do, like I'm on the board of an organization for actually pediatric cancer. And we partner up with a lot of hospitals around the country. And we have programs for art and music therapists, which is, that's my daughter. She puts all her pain into music and it's very therapeutic. And, kids want to be kids. It doesn't matter what they're going through. They want to feel normal. And she has a big scar on her stomach. And I remember that first summer, she was wearing, like 2-piece. And I was like, Alexa, she's like, Mom, 30 people come to me a day and ask. But you know what? One girl, she had appendix scar and she was so insecure. After seeing my scar, she's like, okay, that's nothing. And she's proud of her scar because she's alive. She's like, it's a reminder that I'm alive.
Our scars are the roadmap to our life. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad she has that perspective and that she's healthy. So God bless her. Okay. Talking about the healing, you said that you took 6 months to heal yourself. When did you realize, okay, now I'm ready to date and put yourself out there? Because being with one person for 15 years and then dating, it's scary.
I don't
Exciting, but scary.
The thing is, I don't think I was actually thinking about that. And I always meet people everywhere.
I mean, you're such a stunning woman. I'm sure you were getting men asking you out left and right.
Yes, but I don't think it's because I'm stunning. I think because I don't have that energy when women are so desperate to meet somebody. I never thought, I was not looking into a relationship or dating. It was just not something on my mind at all. And I would meet people all the time. And one particular person, I met him when I was going through divorce and said, it's like, I'm going through divorce. I'm not in, I have no interest into dating right now just because the intensity of my divorce and things. And I just wanted to. And he was like, okay, I'm going to wait. And he did. And
really?
It just...
Oh, I love that. But I'm such a romantic at heart. I'm not dating either. And people don't believe me. They're like, why aren't you dating? I'm like, because I'm just so happy in my peace right now and building myself. I don't want anyone's drama. Not that it would be drama, but I'm just in that space. But that's such a beautiful thing. You're dating Muhammad Hadid, right?
Yes.
What was
it's
that?
Been 3 years now.
3 years. Wow.
Time flies.
So he said he would wait. When did it actually click that you're like, I'm ready?
We talked, and then once I was completely moved out, we went on dates and things. I don't think I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna start dating and relationship. It just happened because I have my own life, and he has his own life, and it just. I'm like looking. I'm like, oh my God, we've been together for 3 years. That's like, but it's also. I know exactly what's, especially after being married. And I knew exactly the people. The one thing I hate is wasting time. I've been on dates where it's like after 30 minutes, I'm like, I'm done.
Right. Why am I here?
And it was simple
I'd rather be home
as,
alone.
another person would say like, oh, I'm very happy we have the same schedule for kids. I'm like, I don't care what schedule you have. If I need to be with my kids, I'll be with my kids.
Yes.
And it was off. Like, or it was small things like that. And that's why I think, again, Muhammad always lets me fly high and guides me. He never cuts my wings. He respects my time with my kids. It's a big one for me. Because for me, you have to realize that after divorce, now it's not easy for even a man because you have kids. Like I have kids. I have my ex-husband. It's like you come with a lot of baggage.
Right.
And a man has to accept all that baggage.
Not see it as baggage,
No, but it's not. But listen, like I'm very straight. When I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. Like, of course, like if we have dinner or event, I would go. But this is my precious time. I already feel guilty that I'm only physically there 50% of time. So I don't want my kids to share me with somebody else.
Oh, of course not. That's a non-negotiable.
And that's why, and it's not a lot of men will do that to accept that.
Right.
And, and it's just like, obviously my kids now are older. They don't want to even hang out with me. They're all about friends. But in the beginning, that was a big thing.
Do you feel that the second time around, because now you're so in tune with yourself, you're not choosing a partner anymore as a 23-year-old young woman, but as a grown woman who's seen life and you know yourself? Do you find that now you just naturally attract what you need? You needed someone who was not going to clip your wings, who was going to hold you up on this beautiful pedestal and say, go shine, because I'm going to stand here and clap for you. Isn't it incredible how you can attract that the second time around once you get clear on who you are and what you want?
Yes, 100%. And it's also because I would rather be alone. There's no reason to be with somebody for me. And it's just like, as a companion, I mean, I travel a lot for work. I have a lot of events and functions. It's not like I'm alone. I'm never alone. I love being alone. And that's why, like, I don't need another person just to be there for me or take me on trips. I was like, listen, I don't need anything.
We've seen the inside of that box.
It's like, I just want, if I'm going to be with somebody, it has to be worth my time. Because otherwise, I don't want to waste any more time.
Right.
And time is so precious. Like, I'd rather be doing something else. I'd rather be, like educating myself, getting the next degree.
No, of course. And as women.
But for a lot of women, I feel that they do need somebody. They do need
companionship.
A companionship. And it's funny because a lot of men tell me, like, because they're like, a man can sense when a woman is so desperate to find somebody.
Yes. They can.
And that's why everybody's like, why? Like, we will sit at lunch and it's like there's, and you can see there's like 10 tables of girls like hunting. And it's like, they all come to you. I'm like, because I don't produce that, I guess, hormone.
You don't have that energy. No.
I don't.
And it's so much more magnetic when you know who you are true to yourself. It just flocks to you. Yes. And I've noticed it too. And I've been divorced now a year and a half and I haven't been in a relationship. I've really just focused on myself. And now I'm finding the type of people I'm attracting, it's like next level. But the reason I think that's happening is because I'm so detached. I don't care. And I look at everything like I have a very, my values are very important to me. My children are my world. I live for them. I breathe for them. End of the day. I mean, no question. But at the same time, there is no desperate energy because I know what I bring to the world. I'm very willing to work hard and have 3 jobs. It's fine. I can do it all with grace. But at the same time, I now know a red flag for me is if I'm in any situation, I don't care who the man is, whether you're that person or that person, I'm not putting anyone on a pedestal. And if there ever comes a second where I feel like I have to overcompensate, I'm done. That's the biggest lesson I learned. It's not about, it's about giving love and accepting love, but not overcompensating. I think that's a really important thing that I learned personally in the last year and a half. Okay, so you are I'm just going to flat out say this, probably the most beautiful woman I've seen in person. What do you do to look and be this beautiful other than the natural genetics? I mean, let's spill the tea a little bit on some of your tips
Well,
and
actually,
tricks?
I do a lot, but I think it's such a part of my routine that I don't even notice that I do things.
What are the routines? I want to know it all.
Okay, besides, like, I do religiously facials like once a month.
Okay.
And then every day I do exfoliation 3 times a week at home. I do icing every day that helps me. I do from a red lights, like everything, you name it.
Mm-hmm. What does your diet look like?
I don't have diet.
Okay.
I love.
Can you write a book on beauty secrets? Can that be the
Okay, I know
book?
from being a model and knowing myself, I know what makes me fat.
Yeah.
And I love bread. It's like if I want to eat bread, I eat bread.
Right.
I don't deprive myself. When I was a model and I was like, oh my God, I need to be skinny. I think I gained weight from water. Then it was a certain point, I'm like, you know what? I don't care. And now my metabolism just burns everything, all the calories in the world. And that's it. But honestly, it's a portion control. I don't overeat.
That's true.
It's like I don't overeat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't eat at midnight. If I want to have ice cream for lunch, I have ice cream for lunch.
You just don't overthink it.
I just don't overthink it because food is not my enjoyment. Food is just a source of energy for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a lot of people, food, because there's nothing happening in their life, it's their, not just a comfort, it's enjoyment. And I love life so much. There's so much to it and so many things I do. To me, if I just like, okay, I eat sandwiches because it's fast and quick and I can move on to whatever I'm doing. That's why it's like, I don't know.
So what's next for you? What's the next breakthrough?
Well, the next is I'm actually working on the next 2 books.
Wow. Okay. What are they about?
So one book is actually going to be about relationship. It's called Catching the Uncatchable.
Catching the Uncatchable.
You know how during the wedding you throw that bouquet and every girl wants to catch it?
I always caught it because I have long arms.
And they always think it's a sign they're going to get married. So it's about, if you have a guy, how to make him marry you, propose to you.
That reminds me of Zsa Zsa Gabor's book, How to Get a Man, Catch a Man, Keep a Man, something like that, Lose a Man.
And about relationship, because it is work to stay long time in a relationship. It's not that easy. But I will have men experts. It's going to be not just my point of view. It's going to be what men think women do right and wrong.
Oh, I love that.
I want women to hear. I think it's going to be actually like an eye-opener for a lot of women, what women do wrong. Because sometimes we just don't think about it.
Right.
And the second book is I want people to see a child's perspective. It's a book of me and my daughter, of her perspective of a child going through divorce, going through that pain, and as a mother, what it is to have that.
Right. Well, you have such beautiful insights. You're a beautiful person inside and out. Thank you for spending the last hour with us. And I look forward to the second book and the third book and just to follow your journey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Breaking Through with Alina Obervian. For our community to grow, please like and share, and also leave a review on this episode. Of course, you can find me on social media and let me know what you'd like to talk about in future episodes. Nothing is off limits, so let's have some fun.